Yeah, there's a lot of sex in this movie. So, and
Yes.
references to. I don't know why I said it like that.
There's a lot of sex in this movie.
Yeah, hey,
Yeah,
big boy,
plenty.
you want to come over here and catch what I'm giving you?
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
Power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone. I don't have my lenses on today, but it's okay.
It looks
You're
like you have a
always,
head.
they're in your head.
It looks like you have a headache and you're rubbing your temples. Like, oh, what a long week of Hamilton. So much orphanages.
You're not wrong, Brian. So many orphanages. Fun times.
How's it
to
going?
be
We don't
had.
ask you about that. How's that going?
It's great. We're in Appleton, Wisconsin right now, which we actually were here a couple years ago, pre-pandemic. I'm staying in a different spot, so I'm a little closer to downtown stuff. But I mean, it's a quiet town, quiet village, provincial
Would you,
town.
Nikisha? Would you say that it's quiet uptown?
It's quiet
you-
downtown.
Okay, that's
Yes.
fair. You set me up for that one. That's not. I don't take the
I
blame for that.
did. I did.
You
That's,
know- you
that's
know who I
totally my
am.
fault. That's totally my fault. It's fine. It's fine. There are people who feed into that, so I'm sure they love you for that right now, Brian. It's all good.
It's not the majority, I'm sure.
Grand. So I'm excited to talk about this movie because this will be only the second time that I've watched this. But we are talking about the 2014 horror film It Follows. So this movie was written and directed by David Robert Mitchell, and it stars Maika Monroe with Keir Gilchrist, Daniel Zovato, Jake Weary, Olivia Lucardi, and Lily Sept in supporting roles. So lots to discuss about the movie It Follows. Really excited to hear you guys' interpretation and take on this because I've also been asking other people who have watched this movie how they felt
Oh,
about
cool.
it. Yes.
Oh, I'm excited to hear that. You did like a
Yeah.
little straw poll.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of people in Hamilton that also enjoy horror stuff. And shout out to my friends on the cast who do listen to this podcast. Thank you guys so much.
Woo!
Hello, thank you.
Can you imagine?
Slow claps. Can you imagine?
I think, connection's bad. How do I boot Brian off
Yeah,
this call?
sorry. Forgiveness.
I have to do this twice today, Brian.
Well, listen, you know, wherever you go, it follows.
Oh, okay. That's a great one. Yes, we'll stick with that. I got you. I'm with you now. I'm on your side. Grand. So, producer Brian, well, now that you've said so many words, let's say some more words before we get into
Sure.
More
this
words.
podcast. Give us more words.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Producer Brian here. We are talking It Follows today. We're super excited. We've been trying to do a couple more like contemporary classics that we really enjoy, that we know that are either beloved by all or divisive. I learned that the ending of this movie is very divisive online. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, I didn't know that. I was doing some TikTok stuff. Follow us on TikTok at Talk Horror Pod. We're also
Do
on
it.
Instagram as well as Twitter. And we're on and we're on YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
What's up?
So I'm doing some more lists for TikTok, and one of the lists that was suggested was worst horror movie endings and best horror movie endings. Find us on Twitter and let us know what some of your favorite horror movie endings are, what some of your favorites are. No spoilers, just list the title of the movies. But It Follows was on a ton of listicles as worst horror movie endings, which I found fascinating. And we'll talk more about that because and we'll get into that stuff. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. So anyway, yeah, follow us on all social media. Yeah, that's it.
No, but that's really exciting because I mean we all kind of turned our noses up of like what people thought it was a bad ending. So okay, cool. I don't know. We'll get into all the things, but obviously heavy spoilers for It Follows. And Jamie, hand us those trigger warnings, please.
Yeah, there's a lot of sex in this movie. So, and references to. I don't know why I said it like that.
There's a lot of sex in this movie.
Yeah, hey, big boy, you want to come over here and catch what I'm giving you?
Anywho, yes, this movie's about an STD and an STI, more or less. So, like, if that's triggering. Also, we do see some people who are deceased, and it's very unsettling to look at that for a variety of reasons. Like, I mean, seeing a dead body is already gross enough. Seeing a dead body where their body parts are moved in weird directions is gross too. So if that very is gross. Disturbing to you, yes, very gross. There's also a gun in this movie. Someone does get shot. Several people and things get shot. And just scary.
Do we say assault?
Creepy people. No, there's assault. And sex workers and using chloroform.
Yeah.
Not chlorophyll. My brain for a hot second was like, which one? Which one?
What is it?
Chlorophyll, more like borophyll.
Oh, Brian's on a roll today.
I love that. I love that quote.
Yes, great film.
What is that
Billy
from?
Madison. That's Billy Madison.
Never saw it.
Oh. Do you like Adam Sandler movies, or are you just like not like you don't know them that well, like not what you grew up with?
It's not what I grew up with, but I will tell you the Adam Sandler movie that random side note that me and my mom love is Just Go With It.
Oh, really?
And it's so random, but every time me and my mom just have the funnest time just watching that movie. It's quite grand. And I know that's probably like CDEFG list of Adam Sandler movies in general, but Just Go With It is actually one of my favorites.
But he and Jennifer Aniston have very good chemistry on
They
screen
do.
in general.
They
so
do.
Like that definitely makes up for a lot of the because that's is that Brooklyn Decker in that movie as the other one, or who's the other one in that movie?
I mean, I don't know like real people's names except for those two, but and then there's like the random sheep scene that just makes me laugh every time. When he's
Brooklyn Decker is in that movie.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's been Adam Sandler corner.
Absolutely, which I think was well worth the 30 seconds to talk about him. Okay, but have you guys, speaking of just watching things, have you guys watched anything this week?
I was about to say we watched It Follows. We've been playing the new Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom. That's been our entire lives.
Oh, is it good? Do you like it?
It's great.
It's excellent so far. And it's pretty spooky.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
It has very spooky vibes. You get like in the very beginning of the game, there's like a creepy zombie like mummy creature. Spooky hands that have been chasing Ryan around. Yeah, they're creepy.
Evil Dead vibes in some places for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he
loses
his hand. Spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom.
Spoilers, hands will be lost. Zelda, hands will be lost. Well, something that is completely the total opposite of anything horror. Queen Charlotte came out, guys, if you're a Bridgerton people. And I basically binged it, but I have the last episode left because I don't want it to end, and there's only 6 episodes. And so I'm just waiting to watch the ending. And I mean, I can't wait for much longer because my TikTok is full of just Bridgerton things. And then a random what I sent Jamie, which was really crazy. Somebody did an AI of horror movie characters at the Met Gala. And I'm like,
Brian, I'll show it to you later. It's weird.
It's so weird, but people are just going crazy with this AI thing. But anyway, all that to say, like, my TikTok is going to spoil it for me eventually, but because everyone has been in their feelings about the end of Queen Charlotte, so I'll watch it soon. But it has been my entire existence for the past week, which I don't mind because it's so good. So if you're Bridgerton fans, watch Queen Charlotte. It's great. It's my plug. That's my Queen Charlotte corner because it's lovely.
Yours was much fancier than ours.
It really was a parlor talk, if you will. You know.
Come, sit, have a drink. It's parlor talk.
So many parlors. Fantastic. So let's get into It Follows. We need a 2-minute plot summary.
What's the plot?
I remember Brian last time was going to do it, but then Jamie volunteered.
So then who
I'm
better
volunteering
than
Brian.
to do it today? Then
Okay, I'll do it.
all right.
That works for me. Someone's gonna do the 2
I
minutes
got
for
you.
me?
I
All
already
right.
have the timer open.
Already. Oh, did you?
And it was
this
not
is
my
collusion.
calculator.
Collusion.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Producer Brian,
Woo.
are you ready to give us a plot summary in under 2 minutes?
Yeah, I think I can do that. I think this one will be fast.
Yeah.
So you say, but
Yeah.
time will tell. All right. Ready, set, go.
Okay, It Follows starts with somebody who is being followed in what could be considered a top 10, top 20 opening sequences in a horror movie. And we don't know what's going on. She ends up dead on a beach. We're very confused. And then we go to a girl named Jay, who was a university student in Michigan. And she has this new boyfriend, or they're starting to date at the very least. Long story short, they have sex. And he ties her to a wheelchair after chlorofilling her, and essentially says, like, look, someone's coming at us. I passed on this curse to you through sex. And so someone is always going to be following you and walking steadily, but coming to basically kill you. If it kills you, then it goes back to me. So it's kind of like a chain in that way. So you're never really truly rid of it. You're always looking over your shoulder. A lot of instances happen in this where she is being followed. She tells her friends, her sister's friend, and the mutual friends. She gets attacked on the beach, and then she ends up giving it to their friend Greg. Greg ends up dying from this, and then in the end, they decide that they're just going to try and take it out once and for all. There's a big sequence at the like high school pool or whatever it is, and they think they get it, but they don't really get it. So she has sex with their friend Paul, and then Paul goes and potentially gives it to a prostitute. I couldn't think of the word, prostitute. And then at the end, they're walking away and holding hands like they're together now. Paul had a crush on her the whole time. And then behind them, you see somebody walking, and you're uncertain if it is the following demon, monster, whatever it is, or just a person behind them. They're always looking over their shoulder. That's It Follows.
Yeah. Ooh. That was great.
Not too shabby.
That's the plot.
Not too shabby, Producer Brian. Fantastic.
Thank you. Speaking of Adam Sandler, not too shabby. That's from the Hanukkah song.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, anyway.
It's fine. Okay, but really quick, was the Hanukkah song just like a random thing that he came out with, or was that an SNL thing? Random side note.
That's on his album. One is his first album.
Great.
So,
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
I think
Wonderful.
I think other versions of the Hanukkah song, like there's a second one, a third one. I think one of those was done on SNL. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But yes.
Okay. Fantastic. I mean, people have sang it before, so I was familiar with that one at least. Grand. So let's get into our first segment, which is likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
So so many things with this, but Jamie, let's start off with you, and you tell us your relationship with this movie and some likes and gripes, and then maybe kind of get into how you felt about the ending, and we can talk about it as a collective.
Yes. I have no memory of when I first saw this film. I feel like my entire memory is just like, I've seen this film, I've seen it many times. But I have a bad memory, so I have no idea what my first watching was. I just know it's like I was born with this knowledge that I really enjoy this film and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've seen it many, many times. And I mean it's a top contemporary horror film for sure for me. As Brian alluded to, the opening of this movie is definitely a top 5 for me, because you have no idea what's going on. You seemingly don't see any threats, but you see that like this person is terrified and running from something in those heels, no less. Like, oh, I feel so bad.
Heels.
I'm like, just throw them. You don't need those.
Chuck them away.
I know it upsets me. And then just like, you know, transition to day when you see her dead body, and like that jump scare still gets me. It's truly terrifying. You're like, oh my God, whatever this is like the worst thing ever. And I'm sure we're about to find out all about it. It's just like a great explanation of like the threat is so high, so like get ready, like you're already bought in. So I really like the way that they kind of like prime the audience for that. The scene where Jay gets chloroformed is very upsetting, and then like wakes up in that like parking garage plant wherever they are, in the wheelchair, is like very upsetting too, because like there's the part where it's like we just watched this person die, but like we don't know how, and now we're getting this very weird explanation, and like we can see what they're seeing, but it doesn't quite make sense. Is this real or is this not real? And like all of that, like playing with like making us question reality is also really enjoyable. So I really like that. I really like how we don't really know when this movie takes place intentionally. Like the technology that we see in this movie, as far as I know, doesn't exist. I don't know anybody who has like a fancy little
clamshell
compact, clamshell thing that also is like a Kindle reading device.
Oh, right.
Very weird, but like I think it's but like then the vibe also, so like that feels future, but the vibe generally kind of feels like weird, like late 80s 90s like aesthetic overall. So I like that you don't exactly know like when this is, kind of signaling that like this threat is forever. Like there's no like specific time frame where like the fear of passing something along to somebody else is like specific to that. So, we're always having that.
So I have a list of things that make it indistinct that I just want to tack on to what you're saying here.
Oh yeah.
That's great.
Whether you know this.
So it's the it's that synth score, that like 80s 70s synth score that kind of puts you someplace and you're not sure. This movie, just in its pace, has a very nostalgic feel to it.
Yes.
The clothes are indistinct. There are no logos. It's all striped shirts, collars, t-shirts with like bathing suits. It's not a ton of things. Also, her underwear doesn't feel like contemporary, but it also doesn't feel like old-timey. Just like in general there, but the clothes are brighter. The old movie theater, it's not like a cinema, it's not a Cineplex or anything like that. The weird clam Kindle, as you mentioned. The Kindle. The Clindle. Also, the only cell phone use in this movie is the opening sequence with her on the beach, when she talks to her dad. Everything else is that clamshell, or like she calls Greg's house with the cord with the phone with the cord on the wall.
Yeah.
With the house phone number. So those are all things that feed into feeling that. Also, the high school feels nostalgic and old. Like, like also the taking place in Detroit with all the rundown homes gives it this like, this like older school feel. I feel like a lot of contemporary movies are told in cities or are told in like prevalent neighborhoods, which this has, but it also has a little bit of that like 80s feel there. So, that's kind of what I got from it in general, just to tack on to Jamie's excellent point.
Yeah, no, that's a great list. But yeah, there's like something about just like the overall vibe that like is really, tapping into my nostalgia of like summertime in the suburbs and like swimming in pools and like riding bikes and like all of that stuff too. Like there's something that like, even though I'm older now, it like makes me feel like I'm a younger person with the same concerns that they're having while watching this. And I really just like that they're able to like bring me back to that time, which, freaks me out more because it's like, oh yeah, like you do have to be scared. Like I think like adding on to what I'm saying, but like their age too, it's like they're young people, but like they're not quite kids. But it's like that middle school into high school kind of age where it's, you're in adolescence, you're learning about dating and sex and things like that. But like, you're still like, there's still something very young about Jay's friend, or I mean, her name's actually Jamie. Scary.
No.
But like her friends are like so young. And then she's the one who's like going on this date and like having sex with this person. But like, I don't know, it just reminds me of like being in middle school with my friends learning about sex and being absolutely terrified. And just like this time period, it's like, it's very weird how easily it's able to like put my brain back into that time frame. But it's like very, very effective at doing it, which is why I find this movie so scary on rewatches, just because it's like, I'm imagining myself in this terrifying situation, or like a friend in this terrifying situation, and trying to navigate it where like you if it's not you, like how can you help when you can't see it, which is the scariest thing to me ever. I have to shout out some of my favorite like spookery that happened, some of the best jump scares, and I'm sure we'll talk about them, but like when they're in her house and something breaks in and everyone's like, nothing is here. And she sees the girl walking through her living room, seemingly like urinating on herself, which I think I've mentioned in a past movie. I hate that. I hate when people pee themselves. It's so upsetting to me. So like watching that, but also like her mouth, like she kind of had like vampire teeth. It was like super weird and very unsettling. So like that's terrifying. And so she hides herself in her bedroom and like lets in her friends, but then her other friend is trying to come in. And when they finally open the door to her, and that very tall lurch guy is coming in, oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Absolutely.
Awful. I hate that. And then another shout out to when they're on the beach and the girl comes up behind her and like all you see is like her hair go up. And everyone sees it, which like is also, I think there's this moment of like validation and affirmation where it's like, cool, like you might not be able to see what I see, but you saw my hair up, and like one of them gets fully knocked over with a chair and has the marks on his body. And it's like, that's terrifying. But when they go into the little, I don't know, shed thing and she's shooting, and Paul is like, what are you doing? Or Greg's on the outside. Greg's the other guy. Yeah. But then the thing blows open and everyone's like, okay, what? And then the creepy kid that just appears and like growls at her. Oh man, like all of those, they're so good. And I don't know what's creepier, when you recognize the person or not. Like the fact that that the one that on the beach that first comes up is her friend, who's like literally in the ocean. And so like, and she has her back to it, so she can't even see it. But like those, I find those scarier when you see the person, even though after we might realize who that person is to the person being chased, but like seeing a second version of the person who's already in the space with you is terrifying.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add to that. I find in horror movies, what I find more satisfying than necessarily like defeating the evil or whatever it is when everyone starts believing you. There's something so deeply satisfying when your friends are like, even if they don't have anything to base it on, they just base it on the trust of you and their friendship. Like in this one, like they kind of believe her and then they definitely believe her after that. But there's something very satisfying about that, definitely. And if we're talking about another Micah movie, The Watcher, like in terms of like, it's very nice to see her being believed by her friends in this one, as opposed to like kind of being on her own in that one. We're me and Mike are friends. That's why I use only her first name.
Her first name.
Yeah.
Super close. You're one of the friends that believes her. That's why you're so close.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Great.
And one last thing I'll say that I really enjoyed is like that end fight sequence in the swimming pool is really good. It's just like the tension's really high, and like every time that Jay gets something thrown at her, I'm like wincing watching it because like she's getting hit, and but also like is terrified and in a wildly vulnerable place. So I'm like curious like what their actual plan was. Like, was their plan to try to like lure the creature into the pool and then electrocute it?
Right.
But then like the creature didn't actually get into the pool. So now she's in the middle of the pool with all these things all around her as like weapons. But yeah, when it all comes together, although what I don't like is when there's too many guns being shot with like reckless abandon, where like, yes, there's a real threat, but remember there's also like people behind those real threats. So I wish there was better gun handling and gun control in this film. Their friend gets shot in the leg and they are not tending to her at all.
Nope.
She's just holding her calf in the back and they're like, Jay, are you okay? And she's like, I've been shot.
I just got shot.
Hello.
What are
like,
you doing?
Why do they just don't acknowledge that at all, which kind of bothers me.
For sure. I agree. I definitely was like, are you guys going to help your friend or no? Okay, cool. All right, here we go. It's fine.
Oh man. So I'll stop there and pass it on.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of what you guys were talking about at the beginning with the differences in not knowing what the time period is, because it definitely, even with like her hair, I felt like Jay's hair specifically, like the little side bang and the very like long but layered hair reminded me of like the early 2000s. And so I thought that this movie was maybe like 05, 06. But even, I don't know if you mentioned this, you might have, Brian, but even the TVs, I was looking at when they were watching the TVs and thinking like, oh, if this is supposed to be like in a modern, like what they're watching and the style of TV that it is like very 80s.
Totally.
Because I literally was thinking, like, what are you guys watching on this TV? And there was like two TVs stacked on top of each other too.
Totally. Like, like in the 80s, you might be watching those like 40s and 50s movies. Like it made like perfect sense. Totally. It's on my list. I don't know if I said it, so I'm really happy that you brought that up again.
Yeah. But I never thought about it. I just assumed that everything was kind of early odds, but it's just a great point that things were a little bit all over the place, but it wasn't distracting to where I was questioning things that were happening, which was nice. Of course, guys, this movie was on top 10 listicles that I have watched and seen on Watch Mojo multiple times.
Sure.
So I knew everything that was going to happen, but I feel like my the first time I watched this was a pandemic watch, because my friend, shout out to Whitney, suggested this movie for me to watch, and then it was streaming, and so I watched it, and that was my first experience watching it. And so now I hadn't watched it since. So now going back and watching it again, it was nice kind of like remembering what happened, but still getting scared at some things. And I will say the one jump scare that got me, and I was really mad that it got me, was when she was in the mirror and she was just like examining herself after everything had happened.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the ball hits the window, and I definitely just like jumped and I thought, oh my God.
Well, yeah. Because
What?
on second watch, that's not the jump scare you remember. You remember the beach. You remember both beach scenes. You
Both beach
remember
scenes,
the
the man
large man
in
in
the
the
back.
house.
Yes.
Yeah, you remember you remember the pool sequence, but like you don't remember her checking her genitalia and then like the ball hits the window. That's not the one you remember.
No.
Totally.
And it got me, and I was very upset, guys, but it's fine. We moved past it. I agree it's a great opening because of the fact that you can't see the killer, but you see the remains of the victim. I think that's absolutely genius. I want to also piggyback because I wrote in this multiple times, but Brian was talking about the scoring and how it was very 80s, and I absolutely thought that the themes in this were very much Halloween vibes with the synths in really high-pitched tones was absolutely 80s. And another thing was the cinematography as well, because you have all of these 360 views going around the whole like perimeter and then zooming into one thing is absolutely like Halloween movie 80s vibes, which I think brings about that kind of nostalgia that you have for older horror movies, and that's like exactly how I felt because the setup was, you know, pretty much the same as far as how they filmed this movie, and some other things that were just kind of like a little gripes, but things that I just was like, what ? These kids are just, you know,
gripes.
Itty bitty gripes. These kids are just not in school. They're like driving around. There's no parents around, like helping them, which I kind of liked it, that they had to go at it on their own, because I guess to Jamie's point of like when things are happening in your friend group, like it is only you guys and you're not really kind of calling so much on parental figures to help you. But it was just so weird that it was like, yeah, we're just going to drive off to this beach or this, you know, cabin over here for however many days, and like no one, I don't know who knows where they are. There's no cell phones, you know, so people aren't, you know, being able to contact people or at the ready. So it's just like, y'all are really out here doing whatever you want. Okay, cool, great. My mom would have an absolute fit. Another kind of gripe, but maybe just not even a plot hole, but maybe just something that I wanted to see or connect the dots with, was after Greg's death and there was like police outside, but like nobody is questioning like the neighbors or like questioning Jay or her friends, and like Jay went into the house, you know, and so like who called the police, you know, to get there? And like, did Jay just leave and disappear and was like, okay, whatever. So I just thought that was weird. Even though Greg was sleazy anyway, I was really happy that he got because he was just like scamming on all the girls. And he was like, I don't even believe your sister. I just like did this just to kind of ease her mind. So I was like, okay, yeah, Greg, you need to go. Bye-bye. Also, question for the group. Yes. Question for the group. So when Jay like drives off, and I forgot exactly what happened before this, but then she's on a beach and she sees the guys on a boat, and then she takes off her clothes and gets into the boat, but then it cuts to whatever. So we're just going to assume that like maybe she was going to try to pass it off and then didn't pass it off. Is that what the vibe is?
That's what I think happened. Like she thought in that moment about like doing it again, and then bails on her plan. Okay.
Because I was like, what's happening here? Because then they were like, yeah, do you want to pass it on? And she's like, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
But I thought that it was smart of them to, one, try and trap the thing so that they can kind of end it in general. And then two, when realizing that couldn't happen, like as sucky as it is, I thought it was a smart idea to give it to a prostitute, because then you know that is going to get like passed on, even though you're still looking over your shoulder because you don't know what's going to happen. But it's like, you know that it's going to get passed on, you know. So I thought that was just an interesting take on it. And I liked that the ending is kind of open-ended, of you really don't know what's going to happen to these characters, and they think that it's okay, but there's still, you know, the possibility, the danger, the threat is still there. Because not everything is kind of like a happy ending. And sometimes I do like when horror movies are like, you don't get a happy ending here. Like, the demons are not slayed. They are still around, because, I mean, there are traumas and things that people will deal with for the rest of their lives, you know, and this is an extreme case of trauma, but just the idea that, like, there are people who will live with some form of trauma for their whole life. And I think that is relatable, and not everybody gets like that kind of clear cut, cookie cutter happy ending. So I dug it. I don't think I have any other things, but again, I'll just state my favorite thing of this was the whole score of this movie. The second go around, I really was paying attention to how much the music really added to a lot of the moments in this movie. And I'll say that for later. I was going to ask a general question, but I'll wait till Brian does his likes and gripes, and then I'll ask the question. So
Sure.
Go ahead, Brian.
General question. Just to backtrack for a second, the Hanukkah song was presented on SNL, but it was rewritten a bit for his album. So while it did premiere on that, the album version is tweaked a little bit. Anyway,
Got it.
Back to It Follows.
Yes.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite have to break the curse movies, where the movie is spent trying to undo what happened in the first 10 minutes. Definitely appreciate that. I like how pithy the storytelling is in this movie. Just with pictures and neighbors kind of chattering, you find out that they have an unstable home life. You get that parent of the picture with the grandparents and the kid, to show that like maybe like the parents were kind of absentee. I think at one point they're pouring booze into their cups and stuff like that.
Yes.
Like, just very quickly. Also, the story that Paul and Jay talk about Greg and like the pornos on the front lawn and stuff like that. That just sets up who Greg is. It sets up everyone's relationship. We learn a lot about characters without them being like, oh, you dated Greg once? Yeah, I did. Like this. Like, when was your first? Like we got an interesting story that did a little bit more than just give us exposition information, which I appreciated. I think that Maika Monroe's performance in this is excellent. I think she is deeply underrated, potentially as a scream queen, if you will. Even though she doesn't scream as much in the movies. You have The Watcher. I have not seen Significant Other, but I know that she has a couple more horror movies coming out. The guy who did The Black Coat's daughter, she's in his next movie coming out. So like, I think she's wonderful in this movie. Her eyes are just so expressive, and in this and The Watcher,
great.
where there's not a lot of talking, she just conveys so much. So appreciate her.
Someone said, sorry, just to piggyback, someone suggested to me the other day, Significant Other. Maybe we need to put that on our list.
Oh yeah, it's on Paramount Plus. That's on my list as well.
Oh, nice. Sorry, keep going.
No, that's great. No, I'm glad that someone said it because it makes me want to watch it more. And then watching this one makes me want to watch it more because I just really like, I like watching her act.
Yeah.
I also, talking about the score, notice there's no music, no score when they're having sex or when she's chloroformed. Any human scary thing does not have a score because your life does not have a score. Like when she's like being chloroformed by him like that, the things that have the score are the impending followers and things like that. And like Nikisha said, I actually have on my likes is that this has Nightmare on Elm Street vibes as well as Halloween vibes. The Greg character's a little bit Johnny Depp across the street. That shot is almost like the same as Heather Langenkamp looking across the street on the phone. Like that, it feels very much, this feels like Nightmare on Elm Street territory. Again, 80s. And then just the suburbs that like, that one note that feels like a heartbeat getting faster and faster, creating that tension, like that feels
Yes.
very Halloween-esque. So I really appreciated that. I also think that's why it feels nostalgic, because it reminds us of those movies as well, like Jamie had mentioned earlier. I really liked that. I like the people. I like the people watching aspect of this. The beginning where they're playing the people watching game. I thought that was an interesting way of kind of getting into things. I thought that the use of PTSD in this as well was very interesting. Just that in general, I like that this curse is tough because it's dependent on others and it's never broken. Like, I think that says a lot. And at first I was like iffy on the rule that, like, if you had it and you pass it, you can still see it. I was like, but that doesn't. I'm like, no, that makes perfect sense for this movie, what it's trying to do and what it's trying to say. I like the idea of the city versus the suburbs. They have that conversation, but then also you see the in between of like the broken down suburbs, the barbarian suburbs, if you will.
Yeah.
Because like that's a transition, and these people are going through a transition. You know, a lot of them are out of high school, they're in college, they're kind of on their own, their parents aren't there. And also that kind of like latchkey kid feeling, even though this is more than a latchkey kid because they're not in school, really, they're in their community college. That also brings it back to a time when before cell phones, and that's a nostalgic aspect of it too, where you're kind of just like, I'll be home at 8, and it's like, you better be home at 8, you know, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I just really, really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. This was my second viewing of it, and definitely held up. Absolutely held up. I also like the foreshadowing at the beginning, where she puts the ant in the water. You know, I think it means two things to me. One, it's foreshadowing of the end and trying to drown it in the pool and kill it in the pool. The second thing is, like, we forget that, like, to ants, we're the ones following them and killing them. You know, like, we all have our like demons, regardless of like how high on the hierarchy of like humankind, the animal planet we are. I thought that was super interesting too.
It's deep. That's
Yeah.
deep.
Something else I really like, that the name of the musical they're doing at the high school is The Mouse That Roared, or not the high school.
I wrote that down too.
Yeah,
Yes.
the community college.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that. Also, that college reminded me of the Nightmare on Elm Street High School too. That hallway scene where, like, you know, she's having the dream in the school
for sure.
in Elm
Yes.
Street, and this, like, when the old woman
Yes.
is just following her with the knee brace. I don't really have that many gripes about this movie. I wanted to bring up the ending, that people do have gripes about the ending. My personal opinion is that they wanted something more final and something more positive, because the open-endedness and potential like unresolved nature of the end of this movie, because the movie reminds you of yourself potentially, that's kind of a hard pill to swallow in some ways. One, again, gripes. Why is she running in high heels? And why would she run out in the open? I don't understand going to the beach and like not having your back to the water immediately. There's so much room between the water line and her, and then in front of her when the car is shining. I don't know. I would have planned that very differently, in terms of if I
Yes.
was being chased like that. But, you know, it is what it is. Also, she
It
stopped
makes for
running.
a great scene on the beach.
It does, and realistically, she gave up. It was bothering her so much that she gave up, because she would have kept driving if she wanted to escape it.
Right.
And then I like that this movie doesn't fully round out the rules. I think that's totally okay. However, the one rule that I would love to know is, like, is it always following you? Meaning, like, if you drive 2 hours away and then you drive 2 hours back, is it meeting you where you ended, or does it have to make that whole loop and then get back to you? So by travel,
Oh, that's fair.
are you able to like buy yourself a couple of hours? You know what I mean? Or does it like disappear and then reappears? Because it does disappear at some points in the movie, where like it's just not there anymore. So I don't, again, I don't really care for this one. They give me enough rules to get by, but that's something interesting to me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's oh, and also another thing is the boyfriend, Hugh, or whatever his name was. I found it
Yeah.
very weird that he did an awful thing, but the character is trying to do the awful thing as respectfully as he can while still doing the awful thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm not making excuses for him. The character thinks he's doing a good job of doing the awful thing. And that is why it's weird to me that he didn't give her clothes back when he drops her off in front of the house.
Yes.
But it's more effective for the movie that the friends find her in her underwear on the road. I think it's a more visceral image. But it seems weird that he wouldn't like give the clothes back as well. Even if she's not wearing them, she's holding them. Anyway, neither here nor there. That was just something that was interesting to me.
No, I agree with that. I literally thought to myself, it's like, if you're trying to do this in like a gentle way, why would you not give her clothes back, or like put her clothes back on for her before you like tied her up, you know, in the wheelchair thingy? It's like, what are you doing?
I mean, also we're giving him too much credit, I think, because he's still a douchey.
I mean, absolutely.
Right.
Yes,
But
he's
on the worst boyfriend list. For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
So I guess and also I have a question. Are we to assume that the girl who dies at the beginning is one of his victims? Like like a failed girl of his, so that's why he's, you know, with Maika Monroe, with Jay at that point? Like that gets, I mean, that's what I think. I'll just say that. And then I have other questions. I have other questions about this, but we'll probably get to those in the other parts.
Okay.
Cool. That's it. That's all
Grand. Well, I do have a general question about, do you feel like this movie is trying to say something about sexual activity with teens? And I only ask this because, one, as someone who grew up in heavy Bible purity culture, the minute I watched this, I was thinking about, are they trying to say something about abstinence and like not having sex at all because, you know, a demon is going to follow you if you have sex? Like, that was where my brain went. And I know that it's just a horror movie and it's not that, but it's just funny if you have grown up in spaces of that nature, how that can be like, oh, is this symbolic of this, you know? And I was asking another friend who came from like the same kind of churchy background as me, but he didn't even think about like that at all. What was really interesting is that he just thought that it was kind of a play on the trope of what we've all been talking about, 80s movies, and how the virgins are the ones that live, but the ones who have sex are the ones that end up dying or getting like killed by the slasher. So he just thought that it was kind of a new play on that kind of trope of the fact that you're having sex and like this demon is following you, as opposed to like you're having sex for your own whatever, but you just get caught by the killer, you know, in the activity and die. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. But do you guys feel like, in general, this has a meaning? And then I'll tell you what I found that the director said about this movie.
Interesting. So you're testing us to see if we're smart.
I'm testing you. Yes.
Well, is this officially brains?
I mean, I guess we can transition, since we're talking about human behavior, how we feel about it. Okay, guys, so here we are in brains. Tell me your thoughts. Tasty.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard.
So
my brain doesn't want a brain. Yeah, Brian, you use your big brain.
This is what I think.
Yes.
I think that this movie isn't trying to say necessarily anything about abstinence, about that. I think it's taking something that you don't know that you're going to get, that you cannot stop, that is not up to you because somebody doesn't share information with you, and you get it and it was not your will, you didn't see it coming, and it's very scary. This idea that you are you're in relationships at a young age, you're figuring it all out at the same time, and there's this one thing you kind of don't have control over, which is absolutely terrifying. Her friends are supportive in this. I think her sister at one point says, like, I really like him. You know what I mean? Like, he duped them all. And then, this is obviously a very specific situation where he's like making sure that he passes it on. But then the thing is, once it's passed on, it's with you forever. Like it's that experience is tainted. Even if you get rid of it and you pass it on, like you can still pass it on, but it doesn't leave you. Depending on what STD or STI it is, it doesn't leave you. It's now a part of you. So that's why I love the ending, because like even though she has accepted the fact that this is going to be with her forever, she has given it to her boyfriend, and the two of them can live in a balanced life, but they know that they have it. It's always there behind them as a part of their history, their sexual history. And that's a scary thing, because we see anything that doesn't go perfectly right with sex, you could see as a scary thing. So much surrounds sex that is scary. Children, STDs, feelings, abuse, assault. Like, it is the center focus of so much fear in society, and Europeans deal with that fear a lot differently than Americans deal with that fear.
Absolutely.
And I think that this movie is just playing on that fear. And I think in the end, what it's trying to say is that growing up is scary. These things are scary, but like at some point you just kind of have to accept that like this is a part of your history, and be as respectful and as non-ignorant and as open as you possibly can be with your friends. So that's how I see this movie. I don't think this movie is trying to say like don't fuck. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
Yes,
is
for
trying,
sure.
You know what I mean?
Oh wait, let me write that.
Okay.
That's a good
Things that this movie is not trying to say. Don't fuck. This movie, and I think that this movie is about a support system, and I think this movie is about like accepting that that's a part of your history and it sucks, but deal with it accordingly. That's what I think It Follows is about.
Yeah, Brian, I think that was an excellent explanation of it, and very similar to what the director, David Robert Mitchell, said about it. He states that I'm not personally interested in where it comes from. To me, it's dream logic in the sense that they're in a nightmare. And when you're in a nightmare, there's no solving the nightmare, even if you try to solve it. Mitchell states that while Jay opens herself up to danger through sex, the one way in which she can free herself from that danger, we're all here for a limited amount of time and we can escape our mortality. But love and sex are two ways in which we can at least temporarily push death away. So that is his take on kind of what the meaning of this is. But I
think mine was better than the director.
I do too.
No, I'm kidding.
I do too. It was very well eloquently stated, Brian. But yeah, but it's the same vibe. It's not a sense of like, don't fuck. Yes. Yeah.
But I like that. I like what he's the director, he knows, but like, I really like what he said about that idea that like that very mortal thing can push death away, and you have to deal with its consequences for how those 2 minutes or that however long it is for you. Like that, those moments are euphoria, and there's a lot of consequences that come from that. But if you open yourself up to big risks, you better prepare yourself for big consequences.
Yeah. I mean, and it goes both ways, because it's not just like good things can come from it. So it's also not stating here are all of the bad that comes from it. But and it's also a thing of like, you're going to keep doing it anyway. So it's not like it happens to you and then it stops. Yes. Sorry, what were you going to say, Brian?
No, my general question before we move on to like brains, like deep into the brains. I want to talk about the boy. Like, how bad of a duty is
the boy Brahms?
The boy, yes, Brahms, the boy.
Check your walls, folks.
Yes. So yeah, like how bad was he? Like we talked about him being a doo-doo douche or whatever we said earlier. Also, like I guess my question is, how bad is he? How respectfully did he not do it? Did he do it like he go back worst boyfriends list? Like where are we on him? Because he's an interest to me. He's one of the more interesting characters in this because like he thinks he's doing it in a more respectful way. Like I'm helping you, like you can see it, but he's also it's a self-serving tactic because if she doesn't know that it's coming, she's gonna die immediately. Like at the end,
Exactly.
I'm assuming that the Paul character was just like he didn't tell the prostitutes like watch out for people. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna die probably immediately, and then it's back to them. Like it's very interesting. So I just wanted to open that up. I don't know what question I'm asking, but I just wanted to open up talking about him specifically, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, number one, he is a duty head regardless, but it's like what are your other options, you know? If this thing is coming after you, you are still kind of a young person. It's interesting because you can understand there's like no other option besides like a prostitute or whatever, but you're still like condemning somebody else to death because you don't want to die. So like, I think any situation where you sleep with anyone is going to be like not morally sound.
Like, what are the ethics? I mean, if anything, the Maika Monroe character is more ethical about it because she told the two people pre-sex. But like, how ethical even is it to pass it off to a prostitute? Because there's still a human being who is like living and breathing.
My point.
Yeah.
Like
right. Exactly.
Know, I'm just. I think that this is also a fascinating line of conversation for this movie in general. But I also want to hear what Jamie from the therapist has to say.
Yes.
I think he's a duty head. I think that who's it at the end? Paul. I think Paul's a duty head for like not being open with a sex worker and like thinking that that's a good idea. Because like just because they're in sex work like doesn't then mean that this person
they're not
is,
a
like,
person
more okay to pass it along to. Like that's fucked up. And yeah, like again, like thinking about, you know, if you are passing it on, like how much information you're giving, because like it is self-serving. If you're telling somebody like, hey, we had sex and you consented, but you didn't consent to like, now you're going to be followed and you are going to be murdered by this thing unless you like escape forever. Also separately, like what existence, this is like more existential, but like what existence do you have as a young person who now knows that you're going to be followed for the rest of your life? Like how do you live? Also, how did he like get that abandoned house? Anyway, that's like a whole other question that I had, but like he still goes home, so I was like, what was the point of the abandoned house? Like, do you still go there every so often just to like, I don't know, like
lure
hide out
people
from the thing?
Yeah, I mean,
or
like booby traps.
I guess, but like I don't know, but yeah, like what kind of life do you live knowing that you're always running? Like that's like the question that poses to me. Like, not that means, you know, if you do contract this, that then you should like die. Like, I don't think that that's the thing. But you know, it's thinking about like the selfishness of the act of passing it on. Like, what are you like? How are you now living? You're both living with the information that you continue to pass it on. Because I imagine like, is it like, I mean, this is a rule question too. I'm getting in my own brain, but like, is it like linear in terms of like, if you get it and then you pass it on to one person, now like they are next in line, but like, can you have sex with multiple people and now are they all potentially like, are you adding like a buffer layer to yourself where it's like, now I'm spreading it out more and all of these people potentially have to die before I'm at risk again? Like that's not clear and I'm making up a rule, but
sure.
Like, is it like, because you ultimately don't know, you can see it following, but you do not know if it's coming for you until, especially if you're with the other person, until that person is definitively dead and then you are at risk. So like, what's the point of hiding if, I don't know. It's just like, I have so many questions about like, how do you move forward from something like this in a way that's like ethical and still like find meaning in your life if you know that you're being chased.
So after this short conversation, I have another interpretation of the ending. Similar to the way that she went into the water and then decided not to do it. What if Paul drove to the prostitutes, decided not to do it, the sex workers, decided not to do it, and so the ethical ending to this movie is that, like, they both know that they're next in line, they've stopped this thing, and now their life is just, like, running away from it. They're walking, holding hands away from that blurry figure in the background. Whether it is or it isn't, it follows. Like, they understand what their lot in life is now. They are stuck in a rut in this suburbs of Detroit or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden, like, that's what they chose. He decided to ethically not pass it on because he didn't think it was fair either. Even though character-wise he might to protect her, but isn't protecting her even easier if you don't have to guess if the thing following you is for you or not? You know that it's always coming for you.
That is coming for you, yeah.
That's another ethical ending to this movie, and I think that maybe that's the conversation we'll be having, is like, because it's so vague, one version of this is that, like, they did the unethical thing, which is a weird choice because they were making ethical decisions before this, with him going to the sex workers versus him deciding not to do that, and like they've just decided that like this is now what they do. They just avoid these things, but they can run together. They can run away in their lives together, or just walk down the street together. So that's another potential option for the ending, which I kind of like a little bit better talking it out loud. I think I'm gonna go with that one. But then why have the scene at the beginning where she avoids them, or she decides not to give it to those boys in the boat, versus, and then like I choose to believe that these characters are growing in a positive direction. So like she convinces him to like not, maybe he's struggling with it internally, going to the sex workers and passing them by. I don't know. Now I'm rambling, but I think that that's an interesting concept.
Well, and now it's the big question too is there a morally ethical way to pass this on, or is it more moral to just, like Brian said, this is your lot in life and you just keep moving forward? Like, are we saying that passing it on is a no-go no matter what, even if you are having a conversation with someone and like telling them beforehand, and then someone like is like Paul as a friend says, I'll take it, and do you know what I'm saying? Like, would that be more moral to do, to have the conversation before, know what it is, and keep passing it on that way, or just passing it on in general is just a no-go?
Well, with Paul, now they're just passing it back and forth to each other. So do you know what I mean? Like, it's ping pong. It's it follows genitalia.
Is that
ping
how
pong.
that works?
I don't know. We don't know the rules.
Right. But I think Jamie brought up like a really good thing of buffer people and what that is. So, but we don't know what those rules are. But all in all, the thing is consent, people. So talk to people. Don't just give things to people just because.
Curse consent. I call it curse consent, of course.
Curse consent.
Yes, of course.
Yes, of course. Beautiful. That was a good discussion, guys. Okay, last question that I have is for Jamie. And how do you feel about using the same thing that caused you your trauma to release you or free you from that trauma? This kind of goes into what the director was talking about.
I don't like it at all.
Yeah, tell me your thoughts.
What a good, I just want to say great question before we answer it.
Yes.
Yay. I got it from the director, but yes. Yay.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. There's like something to it that feels very like there is no control. I have no free will. We're just like perpetuating the same things that like we've experienced and been exposed to, whether we're aware of them or not. And I don't like that, because I don't think that people like don't have the ability to get out of like cycles that aren't working for them, even if they have like, you know, experienced it through other people or like they themselves. And like I believe in people's ability to like recognize those patterns and find another way. So but I think like that being said, that is very difficult. So it's not like something that's like super easy. It's like, now I'm aware and like now I can break the cycle and that's all that it took. But like I think it takes a lot of work to trust yourself and like do work on yourself to, you know, identify your triggers and you know, ways that we can fall back into patterns and like really challenge ourselves to use and practice tools that are gonna, and I'm speaking really vaguely and not on this particular like movie situation, but I think like in general, that, you know, just because like you've experienced a trauma, like it doesn't mean you're not set in stone where like you yourself are going to then like perpetrate that trauma to somebody else. I think like doing the work on yourself and like processing that trauma to figure out what's going on with all of that so that you can then like work on the skills so you can protect yourself and other people moving forward in the future. So break the cycles, folks.
Break the cycles. Go to therapy. Figure it out.
Go to therapy.
So,
yes.
Wait, Jamie, going back, I don't know if you answered it, like the ethics of it all, like I want to hear your thoughts on the ethics of it all.
It's not ethical.
It's not?
It's not.
It's not.
It's not. I mean, it's definitely not ethical to not tell them. I think that like you get a little bit more ethical when you are giving people all of the information and then they have the ability to decide for themselves how they want to move forward. So like, now I'm going to get their names messed up. Greg, I think Greg consented because I don't think he believed that like the threat was real. Paul, I think, is different because like Paul believes it and there's like a willingness to take it on. I think like, you know, because he likes Jay, but also because he cares about Jay and like wants to keep her safe and like is like both buying into it, believing it, but also hopes that that's like a way for him to like protect her, but also like he's had feelings for her. So.
Right.
Yeah. So like, I think it's like, I don't think anybody can operate like this isn't a binary either where like you're either like ethical or unethical. I think there's a ton of gray in this. And I think like if it's existing on a spectrum, then it's better to give people all of the information that you have and let folks decide for themselves versus taking that like autonomy away and forcing them then to like without consent to be a part of this because that's self-serving. It's still self-serving, like giving the information and they still consent to doing it because like now there's somebody else, but at least you're giving them the choice versus forcing someone to be a part of this.
Right.
Whether they then know it or not. Like the least ethical is to pass it, not tell them that you passed it even after and just leave it be. Like, because then they don't know and they have no idea that something is coming for them. That is the least ethical.
Spectrum. Yes.
Yeah.
The spectrum of it all.
Cool.
Yeah.
I took an ethics class in college.
Yeah. What did you were coming in with?
That's it.
That's it. Just each of the class.
Yeah, I had to do it for credits.
I have a code of ethics that I am bound by as a social worker.
Nice.
Yeah.
The only ethics
they talk all about It Follows.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. The only ethics I know are from The Good Place TV show.
That's a great,
So, what
we're all
Chidi
coming at
has
this from
taught
different
me.
angles. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, should we do Rotten Tomatoes?
Yes.
Sure. Can we talk about the end of this though? Like, do we have like other people don't like it? We all seem to be like cool with the ending.
I love this ending. And I actually think that our conversation about it made me realize different things about the ending. And now I subscribe to the epiphany that I had, which I'm sure other people have had already. But I think that they've just decided that this is going to be their monster.
Why did other people not? Oh, other people just didn't like it because it was open ended. Is that what you said?
I think open-ended, it doesn't feel satisfying. I think it feels too real in some ways, that they just like learn to deal with it. Because when you watch movies, you want to see the evil defeated and stuff like that. That's my assumption based on that. And a couple of the little like blurbs I read on why people don't like it, it included a lot of that too.
Okay. Grand.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, we on Talking Horror dig it. So we give it the stamp of approval.
Our dig it approval.
Dig it approval, yes.
All right. Rotten Tomatoes.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
What do you think this has? Rotten Tomatin. What do you think this? It makes me laugh every time. I don't know why.
I think it sounds fun.
Yeah. Rotten Tomatin. What do you think this movie has on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm going to say 68.
I'm going to say 78.
Well, you are both drastically wrong. This movie has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Great.
However, you are not wrong. The audience score is 66%, which I wonder if that has a lot to do with that ending.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the critics' consensus is smart, original, and above all terrifying. It follows as the rare modern horror film that works on multiple levels and leaves a lingering sting. I think that pun is gross, but yeah, I think that works for me.
Lingering sting. Grand.
All right. 4 S's?
Yes.
Yeses.
All right.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horror's 4 S's.
The 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We're going to rank skulls, scares, and shakes 1 through 10, and then we'll give a suggestion of a movie to pair with this. Skulls is mental health, human behavior. How well does the movie handle that? Scares is how scary is it? And then shakes is how much you're going to shake this off. Is it going to follow you forever? Jamie, let's start with your numbers.
For skulls, I have it at a 7. I don't know if I should make it higher. I do really think that people are peopling. I think there's like a lot of like logical, rational decision making that feels really grounded and real. I think that like, you know, perhaps in moments where people are making silly choices, it's really about like the adrenaline and fear that's happening in those moments. So it's hard, like, you know, if you're being chased by something that like defies logic, it's those moments where you're like, I don't understand, like, how is this happening to me, where that's kind of preventing you from making moves. But that feels real because we're you know, we're science brained people. We're trying to understand things, and like sometimes there are things that just don't have an explanation. So I don't know, maybe it should be an 8, but I put a 7.
Okay.
For scares, I'm giving this a 4 because that's probably somewhere closer to how I feel now. But like when I first saw this movie the first couple of times, like it really scared the crap out of me. The ominous feeling that you have throughout this film when the actual like monsters do show up unexpectedly, it's very scary. The score is really scary. Even the lack of score is really scary. But I've seen this movie many times now, so I feel like that's impacting my score.
Cool.
For shakes, I'm giving this an 8. Like, I think that this is one of the best contemporary horror films that we have. I really enjoy it. If you have not seen this movie, like, and you like horror movies, you have to watch this movie. It's just a great movie, you know, of recent history that is a really excellent watch, and it will stick with you forever.
Great.
Nice.
Nikisha?
Skulls, I'm going between 5 and 6, just for things that we've discussed, but it's a hard situation. to decide if people are peopling in some instances. I'll give it a 5. I'm gonna put a 5.
Okay.
Scares, I'm also gonna give this a 5, to piggyback what Jamie said with the scoring and then that dumb jump scare that got me, so I'm super mad about that, so I'm gonna give it a 5. And then Shakes, I'm gonna give this a 7. I enjoyed it even more the second time I watched it, so looking forward to continuing putting this in my Rolodex of horror movies.
Cool. Skulls, I'm going with a 6. For all the reasons that we said, I'm taking Nikisha's 6 so that we have it in there. You know what I mean?
Great.
Right.
Scares, I'm giving it a 5.5 because I'm taking what Jamie said, which is like this was really scary the first time. Different things were scary this time in a different way, but not as scary per se. So more what it's trying to do to you makes me feel scared. So I'm giving it a 5.5 because it's still over the 50% mark. And I give this an 8. This is like suggestions, easy watch. There's a lot going for this movie. It's very different than a lot of other movies. And even if you don't like it, I feel like you appreciate it if you see it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just putting words to people's mouths, but yeah, that's what I'm going with there. And I'll start with, I have 2 suggestions for this, if you don't mind me going first.
Go for it.
One of my favorite I Gotta Stop This Curse movies is Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah, such a great movie.
Obviously different tone of this one. But I also think the endings are more related than you think of those 2 movies. And then here's a weird one. It came out this year, and it's very divisive. Some people really liked it. I really liked it. Some people think it's a garbage film. But there's something wrong with the children. It was one of the Blumhouse straight-to-digital releases early in this year. I really liked it, and one of the things I really liked about it was the score. It's got this like weird 80s synth score. It's trying to be, it's trying to give those like 80s movies like weird, like pulpy feels to it. I don't think it's as successful. It's not, let me rephrase that. It's not nearly as successful as It Follows is, but I think it's somewhere on the spectrum of trying to do something. And while all the swings don't work, I appreciated the swings. So those are my 2.
Nice. I'll go, and this is, I feel like when we talked about this movie, I suggested, or we all suggested It Follows, but I'm going to put Smile in there as far as curses. Yes. Jamie?
Yes, I also had Smile. I also have The Ring. And in this conversation, one of the ones that I was thinking about was Teeth. Because Nikisha, have you seen Teeth?
Mm-mm.
I think that you should watch Teeth. Based on what you were saying about like growing up with like, you know, your experience with religion and like purity. And that is where that movie starts. And then, and I will give a trigger warning that there is assault in that movie in a variety of ways. But, and it's another movie that's like about sex generally, but like it is a lot about, you know, those experiences and how that plays into this person, you know, understanding sex and her body. And I won't spoil anything else because it's wild. But that's my other movie recommendation. But I also have a graphic novel recommendation that this movie reminds me of a lot. If anybody's ever read Black Hole, and I haven't read it in a very, very, very long time. I read it. It's by Charles Burns. I read it back when I was in college because I took one of my courses was on graphic novels. Which was very cool. And this is about a sexually transmitted disease. Oh, yeah, that's mine. That Brian borrowed from me because he was totally going to read it and then didn't. And still
I'm going to start it right now live on the podcast.
Right. Chapter 1.
It's about a group of teenagers who are exposed to this like STD called the bug. That causes them to develop these like mutations. It has like very disturbing imagery. That's the thing that really stands out to me. But I remember it being really fascinating. So for any of you who are into comics or graphic novels, and also like horror and like weird adjacent things or like this movie, I would definitely recommend Black Hole.
Also, just because you said Black Hole, that reminds me of Black Mirror. And guys, there's a new season coming out in June.
Yeah.
Super excited about that. It's going to be fun, creepy, crazy times. Twists and turns. Grand. Well, I think that wraps up everything about It Follows. You can follow us on all of the social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, at Talk Horror Pod. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
Sure, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. So that's like Stitcher, Spotify, and of course Apple Podcasts. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you. You know what we did not talk about at all? I guess because there's not really a lot of like quotable things in this movie, but what can we end with, Producer Brian?
Well, obviously everybody needs to audition for The Mouse That Roared, the musical at Oakland University. The Mouse That Roared. It has 2 weekends of performances. Check it out at Oakland University in Michigan.
Wait, do you remember the conversation that Paul has with that girl Yara in the beginning? And she goes, they're sitting on the couch. She's on her little compact Kindle, whatever we called it. And she goes to Paul, I have an idea. And he goes, what? And then she farts. And then she goes, it got away.
Yes.
There it is.
There it is. That's it. Jamie coming through. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.